For almost the entire history of our species, a human being was never truly alone. From birth to death, your ancestor was surrounded, a tight band of maybe 30 people who slept, ate, hunted, and grieved within arm's reach. Solitude, the way we know it, basically didn't exist. And yet, here you are, phone full of contacts, a city of millions outside your window, and some nights, an ache you can't quite name. So what happened? Why did the loneliest generation in history come from the most connected one? The answer isn't that something's wrong with you, it's that something is working exactly as designed, in a world it was never designed for. Start with a strange fact. Loneliness hurts, not as a metaphor, physically. The psychologist John Cacioppo spent his career studying it, and he found that social pain runs through some of the same brain circuits as physical pain. When you're rejected, when you're left out, your body reacts almost like it's been injured. That's not a glitch. That's the whole point. Think about what being alone meant for your ancestors. No group meant no shared food, no one to watch for predators, no one to raise your children if you fell. Being cut off from the tribe wasn't sad, it was fatal. So evolution did what it does with anything that can kill you. It built an alarm. Hunger is the alarm that says you need food. Thirst says you need water. Loneliness is the alarm that says you need people. And like hunger, it's supposed to be unpleasant. An alarm that felt good would never make you act. For 200,000 years, this worked beautifully. You felt the pang, you moved closer to your people. The pang went away. The system had a built-in off switch, belonging. Psychologists Baumeister and Leary called this the need to belong, and argued it's not a preference, it's a fundamental human drive, as basic as the need to eat. We are, in the most literal sense, built to be held by a group. In the 1950s, the psychologist Harry Harlow gave infant monkeys a choice, a wire mother that fed them or a soft cloth mother that gave nothing but comfort. They clung to the cloth. Contact, warmth, the feeling of being held where it mattered to them more than food itself. We are wired for closeness before we can even speak. But how big was that group supposed to be? This is where it gets interesting. The anthropologist Robin Dunbar found a pattern. Humans can only really maintain about 150 stable relationships at once, and inside that, smaller circles, maybe 15 people you trust, and just 5 who are truly close. That inner 5 is what the alarm is really asking for. Not contacts, not followers, closeness. Now hold that number in your mind and look at the world you actually live in. You might pass 10,000 faces in a single day. Almost none of them know your name. Your ancestors lived their whole lives among people who would notice if they vanished. Many of us now live among people who wouldn't. The alarm doesn't care that the room is full. It only cares whether you're known. This is why you can feel lonely at a party, why you can feel lonely scrolling through hundreds of happy photos. Proximity isn't belonging, being seen is. And modern life is strangely good at giving us proximity while quietly removing the belonging. We moved away from the towns we grew up in. We traded long dinners for quick messages. We replaced the band of 30 with a feed of thousands. Each trade looked like a small upgrade. Together, they removed the exact conditions the off switch needs. So the alarm just keeps ringing. And an alarm that never shuts off doesn't only hurt your mood. A major review by the researcher Julianne Holt-Lundstad found that chronic loneliness raises your risk of early death on a scale comparable to smoking. Your body treats long-term disconnection as a genuine threat, because for most of history, it was. And Cacioppo found something almost cruel about how the alarm behaves once it's stuck on. A lonely brain quietly starts scanning other people for danger. It reads a neutral face as cold, a short reply as a slight. It braces for the rejection it already expects. So the very state that makes you crave connection can make you flinch away from it. The alarm, trying to protect you can quietly wall you in, which is why loneliness so often feeds itself and why it almost never fixes itself by accident, which leads to the part that changes how you should hear this whole thing. Your loneliness is not a sign that you're broken. It's a sign that a healthy ancient system is doing its job in an environment that breaks the rules. The same wiring that kept your ancestors alive is the wiring that aches in you tonight. It hasn't failed. It's faithful. And that reframe matters because it tells you what the alarm is actually asking for. Not more people, not bigger numbers. The alarm wants depth, the feeling of being known by a few, which is why adding 100 new followers does nothing, but one honest conversation can quiet it for days. And it isn't only the deep bonds. The researchers Gillian Sandstrom and Elizabeth Dunn found that even tiny exchanges, a real moment with a barista, a word with a neighbor, measurably lift how connected we feel. The alarm responds to being acknowledged in big ways and small ones. Every genuine hello is a little dose of belonging. So if you feel it, here's what the science quietly suggests. Stop trying to fix loneliness with volume. Trade scale for closeness. Pick the 5, not the 1,000. Let people see the unedited version of you. Being known is the off switch, performing is not. And recreate in small ways the band of 30, the regular table, the standing call, the people who'd notice if you went quiet. None of this is easy in a world built to keep us apart, but it helps to know what you're actually fighting. You're not weak for feeling lonely. You're carrying a 200,000-year-old instinct in a body that hasn't caught up to the modern world. Ancient humans almost never felt lonely, not because they were stronger, but because they were never given the chance. The ache you feel is the same love they never had to miss. And if your mind can keep an alarm ringing for a world that's gone, it can also be taught to recognize a new circle when you build one. Loneliness is the brain's oldest warning that we were meant to live close. Maybe the quiet revolution is choosing on purpose to live that way again. If this made the ache make a little more sense, there's one more ancient instinct quietly running your nights. The reason you're still a little afraid of the dark.